You've lost count of sending your wife to your boss's bed. Yet somehow you don't feel an ounce of guilt. That's because your boss has already made you promises. You watch your savings grow, little by little. The only thing filling you up is the thrill of seeing your balance climb. But you haven't even had 5 minutes to savor it. Your boss drops another suggestion. He wants your wife to give you a son. In return, he'll hand you a hefty sum, enough to retire immediately. This is your dream, retiring early, and yet your mind is in turmoil. A few years ago, you were a broke nobody with nothing to your name. Now you could step into retirement early, but somehow you're not really happy. Because to get here, you sent the woman who loves you more than anything. You sent her straight to your boss's bed. And still, you're haunted by the fear that it might never be enough. Now, if that sounds insane to you, good, hold on to that feeling. Because you probably believe the same lie David believed his entire working life. The lie that says hit $1 million and you're free. Retire, drink something with an umbrella in it. Stress about guacamole prices and nothing else, but that story is a fairy tale. And it's wrecking people who did everything they were told to do. David did everything right, every single checkbox, consistent investing, disciplined spending. 2 kids in college bleeding him dry, sure. But the man still stacked $3.2 million. By every textbook definition, he won. Except now he's got a therapist diagnosing him with financial anxiety. His wife thinks he's losing it, and he turned down 2 vacations last year. All because the market looked shaky. $3.2 million in the bank, and he won't fly to Cancun. And here's the part that should make your stomach drop. David is not unusual. A survey found nearly 48% of Americans worth over $1 million. They still don't feel secure enough to retire. Half of all millionaires, lying awake at night, running the same calculator for the 100th time, hoping the number finally says yes, but it never does. So what broke? The math didn't break, the promise did. When David was 30, $1 million sounded like a fortress. When he actually touched $1 million, suddenly 2 felt safer. When he crossed 2, inflation had chewed through his projections. And suddenly 3 became the new floor. When he passed 3, his financial advisor casually mentioned healthcare costs and suggested he aim for 4. Every time he reached the finish line, someone moved it 10 yards further back. Behavioral economists call it the moving goalpost problem. But from where David is sitting, it just feels like drowning. Drowning in a pool you built yourself. Research shows that once you earn around $95,000 a year, the emotional payoff from extra income starts flattening out. More money still helps with logistics, but it stops making you feel meaningfully better. Financial anxiety, though, that one has no ceiling. You can feed it $3 million and it will open its mouth wider. So if the number was never going to be enough, what exactly were you saving toward all this time? Let's do the math that nobody wants to sit with. Because feelings are negotiable, but arithmetic is not. Imagine you cross the finish line in the year 2000 with a clean $1 million in your portfolio. You're pulling 50 grand a year to live on, nothing extravagant. And you feel pretty good about yourself. Then the dot-com bubble pops, then planes fly into buildings. You're barely crawling back to even when 2008 rolls in and kicks you in the teeth all over again. By 2010, after a full decade of withdrawing money, while the market was busy collapsing around you, your $1 million is sitting somewhere south of 500,000, half gone. And here's the part that really stings. The market eventually recovered. The S&P came roaring back. But you didn't recover because you were selling shares at the worst possible prices. Just to keep the lights on, you locked in every single loss. This is what's called sequence of returns risk. And it's the reason a $2 million portfolio, with an $80,000 annual withdrawal, a perfectly clean 4% rate can still blow up in your face. The long-run average of 7 to 10% means nothing. If the first 2 years of retirement eat 35% of your balance, while you're simultaneously pulling cash out the door, the portfolio never gets the chance to compound its way back. It's like trying to refill a bathtub while someone ripped the drain out. And that famous 4% rule? It was reverse engineered from market data starting in the 1920s. Bond yields were fatter, retirements were shorter, inflation behaved differently. Stretch that retirement to 35 or 40 years. For someone walking away at 55, that clean little formula starts to crack. Researchers are quietly revising the safe withdrawal rate down to 3%, maybe 3.3%, which sounds like a rounding error, but it's not. At 3%, pulling $80,000 a year means you need more. You need $2.67 million in the tank, not $2 million. That gap of $670,000 represents years of additional grinding. saving, compounding, and years you may not have. And then inflation walks in like it owns the place. You retire at 65 spending $60,000 a year. Inflation hums along at a modest 3%. By 85 you need over $108,000 to buy the same life. Your expenses nearly double while you are pulling money out of a portfolio. A portfolio that is supposed to be growing fast enough to keep up. For wealthier retirees, it gets worse. Travel, private healthcare, and high-end services inflate faster than groceries. Their real inflation rate might be closer to 5%, which means the math was broken before they even uncapped the pen. Now stack healthcare on top of that. According to Fidelity's estimate, the average 65-year-old couple needs a lot. Roughly $315,000 after retirement just to cover medical expenses. That's after Medicare is already picking up its share, which is just the baseline. And it doesn't include long-term care. A private nursing home room runs over $100,000 a year. The average stay is about 2.5 years. So you're looking at $250,000 just for that chapter alone. And roughly 70% of people over 65 will need some form of it. That's over $500,000 earmarked for your body falling apart. And it comes straight out of the same portfolio the market already bid into. And the people caught worst aren't the broke ones, Medicaid catches them. It's not the ultra-rich either, they just write the checks. It's the people in the middle, the Davids and the Lindas. Folks who own too much to qualify for government help, but not nearly enough to absorb 6 figures a year in medical costs, without watching their entire life's work drain out like bathwater. Healthcare inflation runs 5 to 6% annually, outpacing everything else in your budget. That $315,000 lifetime estimate people quote today? Give it 15 years, it won't even be in the same zip code. But the extraction doesn't stop at your bank account. It reaches into something deeper, your sense of self. Think about David again. He's not just afraid of running out of money. He's terrified of running out of purpose. For 30 years, his identity was fused to a job title and a team. A calendar full of meetings that made him feel like he mattered. Researchers found that abrupt retirement correlates with higher rates of depression and cognitive decline, and shorter lifespans for people who never built a life outside the office. Retiring can literally shorten how long you live, and that's not an accident. The system is designed to make work feel like oxygen. Because as long as you believe that stopping means dying, you keep producing. You keep generating value for someone else's balance sheet, while telling yourself you're not ready yet. This is the real wealth trap. It's not that millionaires can't afford to quit. It's that the entire architecture around them conspires against them. The healthcare costs that punish the middle. The identity structures that make leaving feel like self-destruction. The financial uncertainty that no calculator can resolve. All of it conspires to keep productive people productive for as long as possible. The ones who escape aren't smarter. They just figured out earlier that the game was rigged to keep them playing. So what do you actually do with all of this? One boring, mechanical, unsexy thing that most people will never do, because it feels too simple to matter. Open a blank spreadsheet tonight, not tomorrow, tonight. Write down every single monthly expense you expect in retirement. Rent or mortgage, groceries, insurance premiums, and prescriptions. That streaming bundle you forgot about, the dog's vet bills, all of it. Then take each line and multiply it by 1.03 20 times. That's your expense at 85 with just average inflation. If you spend in travel or healthcare categories, use 1.05 instead. Now add those lines up and stare at that annual number. That's the number your portfolio has to feed every single year. 2 decades from now, while surviving whatever the market throws at it. This is not strategy. This is a mirror. Most people skip it because vague goals like financial freedom feel safer. Safer than a specific number that might scare them. But vague goals are exactly how David ended up with $3.2 million. And he still couldn't sleep. The spreadsheet doesn't fix everything. What it does is kill the comfortable fog. Once you see your actual number, you stop guessing and start making decisions that connect to something real. Here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to look at your number, whatever it is, and decide it's enough. Not because some calculator gave you a green light. Not because a stranger on the internet told you the 4% rule is sacred. But because you sat down and modeled the ugly scenarios. Built a few quiet income streams that cover your groceries without forcing you to sell shares into a bloodbath. And then made a grown-up decision about the remaining risk. It's a price you are willing to pay for your own life back. That's the entire secret, not a bigger portfolio, not one more year of grinding. Just a survival buffer and the nerve to use it. Run a Monte Carlo simulation on your actual spending, not some fantasy budget. Your real one, with the pharmacy bills and the car insurance. And the property taxes that keep climbing. Find the number that gives you a 95% chance of survival. So you don't eat through your last dollar before your last breath. Write that number down somewhere you will see it every morning. That is your floor, not your ceiling. Then shrink your exposure to bad luck. Dividends, rental checks, and an optimized Social Security claim. Maybe a small annuity that covers the non-negotiable bills. Every dollar of living expenses covered by passive income is safe. You don't have to sell assets to generate it. It's a dollar that cannot be destroyed by a market crash, especially one landing in your first 2 years of retirement. And when the market does drop, because it will, use a guardrails strategy. Spend a little more in the good years, pull back in the bad ones. That single adjustment can add years to a portfolio's life. And it does it without making you miserable. Cover healthcare with real numbers, not vibes. Long-term care insurance, health savings accounts, and how Medicare actually works. When you need it, not how you imagine it works at 53. Model the worst case. The median cost is not the number that ruins people. The tail risk is what actually ruins people. None of this guarantees anything, and that's the point. The retirees who actually sleep at night are different. They are not the ones who eliminated every possible threat. They are the ones who looked at what could go wrong, built a buffer around the things they could control, and then gave themselves permission to live. Whether your number is 500,000 or 5 million, the permission is exactly the same. So here is what I want to know. Drop it in the comments. What is the one retirement fear that still sits in your chest? Even after you have done the math. I read every single one of them. And some of the most useful conversations I have ever had. They started right there in that comment section.